Hi, this is Makona Spokane, the leader and the founder of Church Governance Solutions. I want to speak about tithes today, and I just want to speak about some important facts about tithe. And the reason why I want to deal with this topic of tithes is because we have found people that have actually rendered this important concept and important principle of God very, very much controversial lately, where people are criticizing tithes, left hand, right and side, and people are going on and on criticizing tithes. But I want to speak a little bit about some important facts about tithes. I know you may believe in tithes and you may not believe in tithes, but if you are a Christian, then I would not understand if you don't believe in this biblical principle called tithe, because it's a biblical principle, by the way. Is a principle that is in the Bible. It's a principle that has been applied all the way. It's a principle that is very important to sustain the finances of the church. So that's very important, that we must emphasize that tithe is very important for a Christian life. Tithe is very important basically for the work of the ministry. That's very key. Now I want to speak about some few facts about tithe. The first thing that I want to just mention is biblically, you know that it constitutes 10% of gross income. It constitutes 10% of gross income, not net income. So, in other words, when we speak about 10% of your reapings or your fruit of your labor, we're speaking about those things that you are working on. If you're working in a field, then therefore planting seeds and having harvest during the time of harvest. When we speak about tithes, we speak about taking 10% of that which you have found or you have harvested, and you bring it to the house of the Lord. As much as we speak that it has been applied mainly in the Old Testament, but this principle has never been taken as redundant. And many people are asking the question of why is it not mentioned in the New Testament? Why do you expect anybody to mention it while it's in the Bible anyway? Why do you want it to be mentioned while there's nothing wrong that needs to be corrected there? Because if a principle comes along from the Old Testament and it's still applicable even in the New Testament. And it doesn't necessarily need to be addressed again if it has been addressed and well understood. So this is the reason why we want to emphasize. So it constitutes about 10% of your harvest, and let us do that. And I must emphasize that it is not only speaking to money. As we have said, that if somebody is working in the field and this person is a farmer and they are actually having harvest, so therefore it will be 10% of your harvest. That's what tithe is all about. Secondly, it is the test of obedience. Therefore, it is not optional, but it is actually a mandatory to a Christian, because this is not like a free will offering. Now, a free will offering is an option, which is a choice from a believer to say, I want to give, I'm not going to give. That is not problematic. But the tithe is actually a test of obedience. So in other words, it is something that is a principle and expected from any Christian to be giving a tithe, because that would show the sign of your obedience to God. This is very important. It's a sign of obedience to the principle of God. Now, free will offering is actually something that comes from your own volition, the choice of saying, I'm going to give, and I will give this much or I will give that much, and depending actually on your decision in the heart at that particular time on how much you want to give. And tithe is not the same. Tithe actually is obligatory, is actually mandatory, is something that you need as a Christian to start shaping yourself up and say, this is a principle, I'm tested for obedience here, and therefore I will give my tithe because I want to obey God. This is very important. Now, I want to also mention that it can only be given where one is being spiritually fed. Therefore, cannot be sent to a church far away. And this is very important point that we need to address, because there are times where we're having people that are fellowshipping in a certain place. And this is very important. Now, where you are fellowshipping, and when you look in the book of Malachi, the book of Malachi, chapter 3, you'll realize verse 10 that the Bible is very clear about it. It says, give the tithe into the storehouse. It says so that there must be food in the storehouse. So in other words, when you look at the word storehouse, it's basically where you're storing your wealth, where you're storing actually the things that are available for you. This is a place where you are eating from, the place where you are being fed. And that is the reason why the scripture speaks about there must be food in the storehouse. It's a place where you store your food. It's a place where you store that which you're eating. So if you are eating from a certain congregation, I'm speaking about wherever you are and staying and fellowshipping in a particular church, it is a disorder in the house of the Lord if you were to send your tithes somewhere else where you're not fellowshipping. And I know there's been a question from pastors, particularly maybe way in the villages, and they would say, they are having their members of churches that traveled and go and work and seek for employment in the urban areas, and they are working there. But the fact is that they're working there, they're not only working there, but they're being fed there as well, spiritually. Now, if they are fed there spiritually, remember that the storehouse would therefore be the place where they are fed spiritually. Now, the argument that people put up and say people will go there and seek employment, I always want to emphasize that there are people that go and seek employment in the very same village where you are, Pastor. Because in the same village where you are, there are people that came from other places to come there and teach. Maybe they're teachers, maybe they're nurses, maybe there are people that are working in a hospital next to you, or maybe those people are coming to work in the offices of municipality in an area where you are, but they're coming from somewhere else. And they are fellowshipping in your church full time. Now, the same principle will apply because the storehouse will therefore be your church. So they cannot therefore start sending their tithes somewhere else if they're spending most of their life fellowshipping in your church and being part of your church. And sometimes they're even participators in your church. So they should be giving tithes where they are, because that's very important that people give tithes where they fellowship. It will be of a great disorder for me to be fellowshipping in one place and be giving tithes somewhere, because it will definitely be like going to a certain fast food outlet and order food from there. And when you're supposed to pay, you basically go and pay to the outlet next door that is not related to the outlet that you ate from. And that doesn't make sense if you can look at it that way. So therefore, it is very important that we emphasize that you cannot send your tithes somewhere far from where you're fellowshipping. Your tithes should be in the storehouse, which is the church that you're fellowshipping in. The other point that is of very great essence and important is it should be given as unto God, disregard of how it is being used in your local church, because there are many people that make up their mind. And they are saying, I'm not going to give my tithes because the pastor is actually eating my money. I'm not going to give my tithes because they are misusing the money in this church. Now, I want to give you an option and say, if you are in a church and you find the church to be valuable to you, you find the church to be very important for you to stay, because remember, you're not being paid to be in this particular church. You're not forced actually to be in this particular church. So if there's something untoward, for instance, mishandling of finances, that would mean that you're not comfortable in that particular church. So go and find a place where you can serve God better. Go and find a place where you can fellowship with your heart full there, completely surrendered in a way that you're submitting under the minister there or the pastor there. Because if you are in a church where you're not too happy, because say they're mishandling finances, so therefore you're not happy to be in that church. So therefore that's going to cause you to start having gripes about giving tithes. So, but if you are going to give your tithes, and you are happy in that church, give your tithes despite of how they're using the money. Because the money that is being brought in the church, they are actually using it for the amenities of the church, paying the bills of the church and so on, paying pastors and so on. But if you are actually suspecting that money is being misused, that's not a good enough reason for not giving tithes. So therefore, make a choice of if you want to be in that church or not. If you want to still be in that church, so therefore make that decision but yet continue giving your tithes because that's the storehouse where you're eating from. And I want to emphasize that because it's a very important point for us to consider that let's give our tithes and let us not find the reasons of not giving tithes because that's the principle of God, as I've said earlier, and it needs to be followed because it's a test of your obedience. And God want to see if you're obedient enough with tithes. So let us be obedient, therefore, and give our tithes in the fellowships or in the churches where we are. I want to end up here today. Your host, Mykonas Pogani. Thank you very much for listening to us and be part of this great topic as well today. And I hope you will be able to join us as we deal with other topics going forward. But I want to just remind you before I go that please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure also that you click that notification button that would notify you of any other material that we're posting on the social media. Remember also we have in Church Governance Solutions Facebook page. So please get there, click like, and make sure that you're part of this group because that will help you as well in the teachings going forward. May the good Lord bless you. Allow me to say cheers for now.